What up, everybody? How my saints doing today? I hope you're doing all right. So my last longer videos was 1samuel16. And so I've been in 1samuel17 this whole time, just reading and reading and reading and reading and taking it in. And so today I want to talk to you about 1samuel17. Before, I'm going to give you a little backstory. Israel decided they didn't like God being their king. And they wanted to be like everybody else, and they wanted a king. And so God told Samuel, okay, here's what you're going to do. And so Samuel goes, and he meets Saul, and Saul becomes king. We kind of did a couple videos on Saul. Saul was a people pleaser. Saul cared more about what the people thought of him than he did what God thought of him. Which just kind of reminds me that you ever seen that meme where it's like, I would rather be, I would rather be right with God and wrong in the world than right with the world and wrong with God. And that's kind of what Saul was, not judging him, but that's where he stood because he was bound by strongholds of fear, and seeking out his validation through people and living through his own power and strength. If you remember right, we talked about it. He kept saying, no, just come back and worship with me. Just come back and worship with me. I didn't mean to not do what God told me. I thought I did what was right. I did what the people wanted. And they was like, Samuel was like, no, I'm not coming back. And he's like, please, please, please come back to my people and worship. We'll worship your God, right? My, until it came to God and it was yours. Yours, Samuel, your God, right? Because he didn't have the relationship that he needed to have with him. Okay, boom. David becomes his harp player because Saul be having some demonic spirits that come over him and he just be getting real distressed and angry and all this different stuff or whatever. And it said that David would come and play the harp for him and he would be soothed. Also, we know that Samuel went and anointed David. We know that David has been anointed to be king, but David is not in the season where he is king, right? He's the harp player right now in this season. And so that's where we jump off, chapter 17, 1 Samuel. It starts out by talking about the Philistines come into Israel, into Judea or Judah, or one of them places, and they camp out on the mountain. And it says that the Israelites come and they camp out on the other side of the mountain. And it says that they stand up against each other. One on one side of the mountain, one on the other side of the mountain, and in between them was a valley, right? So if you picture it, one on this, one on that, boom, valley in between. It says that the Philistines had a champion, and his name was Goliath. It says he was 6 cubits in a span or something tall, right? And so I looked that up, and they said that it's either believed to be that he was 9'9", or some translations say 4 cubits, and they believe he was 6'9". But either way, he was a big dude. It said his armor, it started naming off all this. It was this many shekels and this, that, and the other. Well, I looked it up too. And it was like 125 pounds worth of armor on this dude. You know what I mean? So he's a big boy. And he steps out there on the line in the valley between the Philistines behind him and him standing in front of the Israelites. And he's like, I don't care who you are. Send your best. Aren't you Saul's servants? We don't need to fight, all of us. You send one, I'll be our one, and we'll go at it. If you win, we'll be your servants. But if we win, you'll be our servants. And it says he did this for 40 days. It said that the Israelites were dismayed and fear took over. So much to the point that Saul was offering his daughter. He was offering to make whoever went and fought like they were part of the royal family and exceed their family wasn't going to have to pay taxes in the land no more. But nobody wanted no smoke with this giant. And it just kind of reminds me, like, we all have giants in our life. Whether that's addiction, whether that's depression, whether it's greed, whether it's fear, whether it's anger, whether it's insecurities, whether it's pride, right? We all have these different underlying spiritual giants in our life. And sometimes we have physical giants in our life too, that unexpected bills that we don't know how we're going to pay because financially we're strapped already. And so the story goes on. And it says that Jesse tells his son, Jesse is the dad of David. And he's got 8 boys total. And 3 of his boys are at war. They followed Saul into war. And it says that David is the harp player for Saul. But he goes back and forth because he also shepherds his father's sheep. And so his father tells him, he says, David, take this bread and this cheese and this stuff and take it to your brothers and find out on account of how they're doing. And then come back and let me know. And so David gets all the stuff. He finds somebody, one of the other shepherds, to sit in with the sheep so he could go do what his father asked him to do, right? Honor thy father and mother, one of the commandments. David wasn't a perfect man, but David was a God-loving man. Difference between David and Saul. Saul was a people pleaser. David loved God more than he loved anything else, but he still made mistakes. And so anyways, David goes, takes his stuff, says he leaves the bags with the people, and then he runs down to see what's going on the line, you know. He's just a little kid, like 15 years old or something, and he goes down there, and he hears this Philistine out there defying the armies of Israel. And instantly, he's not thinking about the people. He's not thinking about how tall the giant is. He starts thinking about, this guy's disrespecting my God. Like, Israel, we're God's people. And you're not going to stand. You say you defy the armies of Israel. Well, the army of Israel is the army of God, or one of the armies of God. And we fight under the army of God. And so he's getting, heated up. And he's asking questions. And wondering why all these people look so scared. And so these people, he overhears them talking about the daughter and exempt from taxes and all these things. But he doesn't even really care about that. He just cares that this man's out there disrespecting Israel. And most of all, they're out there disrespecting God. And his brothers see him and they're like, oh man, you prideful. You're this, that, and the other. Why are you even down here? Doubting him, shame-filling him, trying to stop him from stepping into the purpose that God has called him for. But David's like, why do you even say that? I can't even speak. And so David just ignores him and goes, and it says he goes to somebody else and he asks the same question. And these people give him the same answer. They're going to exempt from taxes. They're going to give his daughter away to that person. And it says that someone overheard him speaking. He's like, because not today. This is the last time he defies my God in front of me. And so Saul calls him into his area. And it says Saul's like, are you okay? I'm ad-libbing here, but he's like, are you okay? Are you sure? You think you're going to go take on that guy? Listen here. You can't take on that guy. What are they doing? Once again, discouraging him. Not uplifting him, not telling him he can, not standing behind him in faith. No, they're doing what the world does, and they're dragging him down. They're doing everything they can to try to convince him not to do this because they won't do it. But see, he is operating in something not that they are. He's not operating in fear. He's operating in faith. And he believes in his God for the answer. And so they go on to say, Saul says to him, man, you can't fight this man. You're but a boy. And this man has been fighting since he was a boy, right? He's like, you are a boy. And since he was a boy, and he is a man now, but he's been fighting that long, you can't take him. But David doesn't let that stop him. David says, you know what? I've been tending my father's sheep for years. He says, you know what happens when a lion or a bear comes and snatches one from the flock? He said, I go after it with my club and with my sling. He said, and I go and I get the sheep back. And I beat it until it does. And when it turns on me, I grab it by its beard and I beat it with this club until it's done. He said, God has delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear. And God will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine too. And I don't know who needs to hear that. But whatever that addiction is, whatever that depression, whatever that anger, whatever that fear, whatever that insecurity, whatever that is that you're struggling with, that you're looking at like it's just too big. The God who delivered David from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear is the same God who will deliver you from this giant. The fear is the stronghold the devil wants you to stay in. The shame is the stronghold the devil wants you to live in so that you never step out of the prison that you've created for yourself. But the prison will not hold you. The walls will come down. The God we serve brought the walls of Jericho down, and the God we serve takes down this giant. But so in the story, it goes on. Saul's like, all right, bro, if you really want to do this, man, I'm going to let you do this. So here's my armor. And so David starts putting on this armor, right? He puts the helmet on the body, and David's walking around with all this armor, and he's like falling over. He's like, I'm sorry, bro, but I can't do this. Once again, we see a perfect picture of the world because the world sees us doing things in a certain way. And so if you don't fit in that criteria of the way they say, meaning they try to put their armor on you. But David was operating in a different armor, a spiritual armor, the armor of God. He didn't need that man-made armor. Not saying that man-made armor was bad for a person who was raised to wear that, but David wasn't used to fighting in it. And so David didn't people please. He didn't just do it to impress the king. He gave it back to the king like, here, take it. I don't need that. And it says David picked up 5 stones, J-E-S-U-S, or I like to think of F-A-I-T-H. That's what he did. He picked up 5 stones, put them in his bag. He grabbed his sling, and he went down there. And it says, as he was approaching, Goliath seen. And Goliath's like, come at me, bro. Come at me, bro. Like, you think I am a dog that you come at me with sticks? Like taunting him. Really lightweight, being over cocky, confident. Because he's like, man, this little dude, look at me, I'm 9'9". I'm huge. Like, I'm about to whoop this dude. He's like, I'm going to give your flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. David looks at him. He says, you come at me with javelin and with spear? He said, but I come to you in the name of the living God. And today is the last day that you defy the army of the living God. And that's when it says it goes down. And Goliath comes at him, and as Goliath comes at him, David takes his sling, and one of those 5 stones is all he needed. Falls, boom, hits Goliath, drops him. NIV version tells us he's dead. Instantly. Dead. But it says David goes and he grabs out the sword of Goliath because he didn't have his own sword. And it says that he cuts off Goliath's head. But he was already dead. He didn't have to cut off the head. But he did it. He did it. And he took the head back and gave it to Saul. And then he kept Goliath's armor. I don't know how much that was worth, but I know it was 125 pounds worth of armor. So that's a lot of whatever it was made out of. And back in that time, remember, metal, steel, iron, all that stuff was probably worth crazy amounts because it's not like now. But so we see this epic little boy who nobody thinks can do it, stand in faith, fight this giant and take him down, but not in his own strength, not in his own power. He's not out there like, I'm David and I'm going to kick his butt. I'm David and I'm going to do this. I'm David. So why me? That's what's going on. We got to stop standing out here being like, I'm Rainy and I'm going to do this, or I'm Rainy and I'm going to do that, and Rainy's going to do this, and Rainy's going to do that. And we got to stand down, humble ourselves, and admit that it's not us or our strength, right? Not by power, not by might, but by the Spirit of the living God. That's how we beat our giants. That's how we take down those physical giants, right? We get on our knees and we pray. We stand up and we look to the one who set us free. That's how we defeat our giants. I don't know about you, but the more I've read about David and the more I read about Saul, I see a lot of traits of myself in Saul, where I'm a people pleaser, where I seek out validation from this, that, or the other. And the more I read and the deeper I go into it, I just ask God, I don't want to be that. God, I don't want to be like Saul. And it's not that David's perfect, because David's not perfect by no means. David does a lot of dirty stuff, and we'll get into that as we go further into Samuel. But David's answer is always God. And so I don't know who else, along with myself, needed to know. But that's what we need to change. Our mindset needs to be God. Our heart needs to be God. Our body, our soul, our strength needs to be God. God first. Not us, then God. Not your people, then God. Not you, then your people, then God. No, it needs to be God first. And so, I don't know who needed to hear this. I don't know if this helped anybody, or even if not, maybe this is just cool unpacking the story with you. Because I love David. And I've always believed myself to be a man after God's own heart, just like David. But I see myself in Saul, and I don't want to be like Saul. And so maybe you see yourself in Saul too. And my prayer for me and for you is just that God would deliver us from that people pleasing. That God would deliver us from the hand of the Philistine, from the giants that's in our life. The same way he delivered David from the paw of the bear and the paw of the lion and the hand of the Philistine. That the same God who brought down the walls of Jericho, the same God who sent his son to die, the same God who wasn't in the tomb, the same God who laid down his life for us, that same God, that he would show up and show out, and that he would straighten the posture of our hearts, and that he would transform our mind through his word, and that he would renew our strength, and that we would move from being like a Saul to being like a David. And I pray this in the mighty, powerful, precious name of Jesus Christ. I love you, but more than me or anybody else, just know God loves you. Peace.